Hi everyone. So I'm making this video to tell the story of the night that I got arrested. I wanted to share this story not to say, listen to my bad cop story, all cops are bad, we should hate cops, but just to tell my story, something that happened to me, because I feel like there's so many people, specifically white people, or family and close friends of law enforcement officers that are so quick to defend all of them and so quick to jump in to interject with, well, not all cops are bad. And it's kind of like, it's silencing. It makes you not want to share what happened to you because you feel like people don't care. To tell a story about something that happened to you and to have someone interject or retort with, well, I know someone that, is good that does that, or that can't be the whole story. It's just hurtful. I'm sure that people don't mean it to be hurtful that say it, but it is. Like, if a rape victim was telling you her story, would you say, well, not all men rape? No. You would just listen and you would show compassion and say you're sorry that happened. So I'm not sure why it's any different when someone shares a story of what happened to them with a law enforcement officer. I'm not sure why so many people feel the need to, instead of say, I'm sorry, to say, well, not all cops are bad. We know. That doesn't need to be said. Thanks, but no thanks. So here's my story. This year was 2010, which was a really great year for me. I had started an internship at Lake Gem Elementary School with one of the most amazing women that I've ever met. And she passed away last year, but I was so blessed to be in her classroom, Danielle Peoples. I was in her classroom in January. Lake Gem was my dream school. I was praying to get that school because I wanted to work there, so having an internship there was awesome. I was placed with an amazing teacher. That was in January, and then in February 2010, I got engaged. In June of 2010, I finally graduated from University of Central Florida, and in October of 2010, I got married to my best friend Ian. So 2010 was a pretty great year for me, minus this incident. It was in April. It was April 17th, 2010. That morning, Ian and I had gone to taste different foods to pick out our wedding menu. And that evening, I was going out with my friend, the one that sent the messages, the text messages, if you read them. And we'll call her B. She knows why. B and I were going out. We were meeting up with some of my husband's friends from Titusville for 80s night at Back Booth, downtown Orlando. Just for a fun dance night, and nothing too crazy because I was supposed to have my engagement pictures the next morning. So it was just a fun night out, and that was supposed to be that. About halfway during that night, my friend B and I decided to head over to I Spy and Barbecue Bar a few streets over, and we met up with my friends, Michael and Adam, and it was such a fun night. Sucks that it got ruined. But about 1:30, we decided to head back to Back Booth to end the night with my husband's friends. And we walked back over, but because everything closes at 2 at a certain time, they weren't letting new people into the club, the bar. So we weren't allowed to get back in, which was fine with me. So I texted my friends that were inside to say, hey, B and I are outside. We can't get back inside. So whenever you guys come out, we'll be out here so we can all leave together. So while I was texting, I hear B screaming and yelling, and she's in this argument with the Back Booth bouncer about the tattoo on his face or something. I really don't know. And at this point, he has picked her up, and he has her feet are off the ground, and she's screaming, hitting him on the head, to put her down. And I look to my right, and leaning against the wall, there's an officer. And I'm scared for her. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he is going to arrest her. And she's just like me. She's nice. She's in college to be a teacher. And I was just thinking, like, I've got to get her out of the situation because, like, he's there. He's going to, like, think she's, like, you know, public intoxication, like, get her a charge, whatever. So I tell her to stop, like, she was being rude. I apologize to the back booth person. And then I go to text the friends again to say, okay, we don't have time to wait. Can you guys come out now? So while I'm sending this text, I just get shoved, like, really, really hard. And it made me, like, back up a few steps and fall off the curb into the street. And I didn't know what happened. At that point, I was thinking, like, did someone bump into me? Like, some drunk person walking by bumped into me. And I had my phone in my hand and my camera on my wrist, and it made all of my stuff, like, fall. So I was looking down, trying to, like, gather, like, I processed what happened. And then my arm gets grabbed. And as I'm pulling it away, I realize that it is the cop that was standing against the wall that pushed me and is now grabbing me. So I pull my arm away as I'm registering that this is an officer grabbing me. And he said, "What are you doing?" And he grabs me again, but harder, and twists my arm behind my back. And starts dragging me across the street to where his car is parked. And this is the point when all of my husband's friends come out of back booth, so just in time to see me being humiliated. So he drags me across the street. I'm still saying, like, what did I do? My friend is hitting him. She's yelling at him and physically hitting him, and nothing happened to her. Like, nothing. Like, he didn't grab her too. Nothing happened to her. But he drags me over. His car was on, pushes me on the hood of the car to put the handcuffs on. And I just remember, like, the car was so hot, it was burning my skin. And he's telling me that I was arrested. I was under arrest for resisting arrest. And I said, resisting the arrest of what? And he didn't answer. He put me in the back seat. And I just didn't know what was going on. Like, I couldn't believe that just happened. There's, like, a crowd gathering that's now looking at me like I am this criminal. And it was so embarrassing because I couldn't explain myself. Like, they don't know me. Like, who knows what they're thinking about me. So I remember I wasn't that worried yet because one of the guys that I was out with is a sheriff. And he was white. So I was like, you know, Mike's going to get me out of this. Like, he's going to talk to the guy. It's a big misunderstanding. And I'm going to get out of this. So Mike goes over. He shows the guy's badge. And the guy didn't care. And Mike's just like, I'm sorry. Like, there's nothing I can do. And he was in Orange County. He worked in Melbourne. So I'm in the car. The officer gets back into the car. And I'm just like, you know, like, sir, what did I do? Like, I don't understand what I did. I was literally just standing there. And he says, you know, you didn't do anything, but I already started the paperwork and I'm not going to stop. And he even said, it's really your friend I should be arresting, but oh well. And, you know, at that point, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, you're a police officer, please don't do this, you know, like, I'm in school, I'm a teacher, I have engagement pictures tomorrow morning, like, just please don't do this, please. And he told me to shut up, so I stopped talking, because I thought, you know, maybe if he sees that I'm polite, like, he'll feel sorry for me and he'll let me out. So we got out of the car again. At this point, he didn't have the air on, and it's so hot, it's Florida, the doors were shut, the windows were up. And I have a condition where I don't sweat, so my body doesn't release heat properly, and I overheat and pass out. So I thought I was going to pass out. So I yell through the window to Mike to have him ask if he could turn on the air or open a window, and he wouldn't turn on the air, but he opened the door a crack. And, you know, like, Mike told me, like, they'd called Ian, they were gonna, like, do whatever they could. My friend is crying, she's sorry, thinking everything's her fault. And I still don't know what's going on. I still don't know why I'm in this back seat, what's gonna happen to me, I was just in shock. So the cop gets back in the car, and then we drive off, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. So we get to the first turn, and he turns so hard, and it makes me like slam my head into the door. And I realize, like, I don't even have a seatbelt on, you know, and like my hands are behind my back, like he's driving like a maniac. And I said, can you at least put my seatbelt on, please? And he says, why? So you can bite me? And I said, why would I bite you? And he said, because I know black people like you, and you guys are all animals, and I'm not going to put your seatbelt on so you can bite me like the animal you are. And it was just so hurtful to hear, and so scary that I'm alone with this man that can do anything he wants to me, and I didn't do anything. I'm not even supposed to be there. So we stopped somewhere else, and we picked up another guy, this Hispanic man, and he gets in the car in the back seat with me, and he's just like cussing this cop out for like 3 minutes, just every word he could think of, like spitting and just being crazy. And I said, you know, like, can you just calm down, and like, this is happening, like, you yelling isn't gonna change it, like, will you pray with me, like, can we pray together? And he's like, can we do what? I was like, I don't know if you're a prayer, but I am, like, I'm gonna pray for us, and like, we're gonna be okay. So he prayed with me, and we got to the place, I don't even know the name, 33rd, wherever, in Orlando. And then I really started freaking out, like hyperventilating. Like, I didn't know if I was gonna go like in a like jail cell with like other people, if I was gonna have to be like strip searched or do the like bend over and coughing. I'm just thinking of like every jail TV show and movie I've seen, and just picturing all the horrible things like that were about to happen to me. And like, I wasn't supposed to be there, like I didn't do anything, which thankfully none of that happened. Take off my jewelry, turn on all my stuff, take off my shoes, get my mugshot taken, and then it was kind of like being at the DMV. It was just a big room with a bunch of chairs and like an office area where the officers were working. And I remember like sitting down and still just not knowing like why I was there. And I went up to the desk to ask, like, can I just get some info? And I remember the lady saying, like, get away from me. And I said, but I just have a question. And she said, get away from me. So I went back to sit down in the corner, and I just cried because, like, I felt so helpless. Like, I wasn't supposed to be there. I didn't do anything. And I was there, and there's nothing I could do about it. And it was kind of nice because all of the people there, which are people that I would never picture myself associating with outside of this scenario, came over, and they were so nice and they were so kind. Like, they hugged me, they brought me water, they got tissue for me, they like shared their stories of their first time being arrested, if it was like a multiple person that'd been there multiple times, and told me it was gonna be okay and that I was gonna be okay. And I remembered this one like huge black guy, this old man coming over, and I'll never forget what he said. And he said, like, I can tell from the way that you carry yourself that this is not, you know, a place for you. Like, you're not about this life. And he said, and I bet that before you got here, you're one of those people that thought that everyone that was in jail deserved to be there. And he was absolutely right, because that is how I thought. I thought the same way that most people probably think, that, oh, if you just act a certain way and you talk a certain way, and if they didn't dress like that, and if they probably mouthed off, and they probably did this, and they probably did that. And I saw firsthand that that is not the case, because I was there and I didn't do anything at all. But they were just so kind, and I was so appreciative for that, and I'll never forget that. And the officers were so mean. Anyone that I asked for help, or anyone that I tried to talk to, made me feel like crap. They made me feel like I wasn't a person, and that's not okay. And the same people that defend these terrible, racist, ugly, evil officers in these videos, and they see it with their own eyes and still defend them and say, well, they deserve their day in court and they deserve their trial before you tarnish their reputations. I deserved that too. I didn't do anything and I was being treated like I was an animal. I started to feel like it was just terrible. And that's not okay that that happens every day. And that people will still defend others because they wear a badge. They're capable of being wrong and they're capable of so much like abuse of their power, and that's not okay to just blindly defend them because they're cops and because the other person is black and you think they look like a criminal, or you heard this and you heard that. Because for all you know, those charges were charges that they didn't even deserve, and you're calling them a criminal. So we were there for a few hours, and they would call like people here and there, like I guess as their paperwork got processed to be released. And I remember maybe like 6 or 7 in the morning, this kid gets called. This like he had to be like 18, this black kid, and the lady says, "So and so, go stand over there." And she didn't nod in a direction, she didn't look in a direction, she didn't point in a direction. So he naturally said, "Stand over where?" And she says, "Are you giving me an attitude?" And he says, "No." And she just rips up, and this is in front of all the other officers in there, she just rips up his paperwork to be released and says, "You know what? I lost your paperwork. It may be another day before I can find it. You can have a seat, and like you'll be placed in a cell." And he's just like, "What?" And then like 2 like men come over, like officers, to like push him down and like make sure he's not gonna go do anything to her. And it's like, you just watched her do that. Like that's not okay. And he's not allowed to be frustrated and upset. We're just supposed to like take this crap. Like I couldn't believe that this is how officers, law enforcement officers that are supposed to like serve you and protect you are now treating you this way. And I'm not, again, because I know someone's going to say, well, not all officers are bad. And I know people watching this might have a mother or a father or a brother or your husband in law enforcement office, but it doesn't matter. Like maybe they're good people, but you have to acknowledge that not all of them are. The same way that you can think that every black person in that video is wrong, some officers are wrong. And that's not okay. And it doesn't make other good officers bad to admit that there are some bad ones. So a few hours later, I get my paperwork and I didn't even read it in there. I just took it, I got my stuff back, and I was released. I canceled my engagement pictures. I got to Ian's car and I just cried. I was just so happy to be out, but it wasn't over because I still had to work out like what was going to happen to my internship, what was going to happen to me being in school. So while Ian was driving me home, I looked at the police report that he'd written up about me, and I could not believe it. It said that I was inside a back booth, which I was not fighting, that I was in a physical fight with someone in there, and that it took 3 bouncers to carry me out, and I was still trying to get back in to fight this person, and that he was off duty but walking by, and that he saw what was happening, so he came over and asked me to leave 3 times, but I refused to leave. So he had no choice but to arrest me, and like I couldn't believe it. Like it was a complete lie. Like I was waiting to see like her friend was hitting this guy and she yelled, or I don't even know what I was waiting to see, but like I was willing to still give him the benefit of the doubt that he was confused or that he made a mistake, and when I saw it we could realize what the mistake was and figure things out. But he completely lied. Like so I remember the first person I called was Danielle Peoples, who I had my internship with, to tell her, like, I don't know if I can come in on Monday because I got arrested, and it's like, I'd only just met her, and I didn't know what she was going to think of me. I didn't know if she was going to say, like, oh, this little thug, I don't want her around my students. But she didn't say that. She just said she was sorry. And she was sorry that it happened to me, and she understood that can happen sometimes. And I was just so thankful that as a white person, she didn't say, well, you know, people get arrested unfairly all the time. And she didn't say, well, you know, there's good cops too, so why are you telling the story? She just listened, and she believed me, and she felt bad for me, and she was mad for me, and it felt so good that I wasn't judged and I wasn't questioned, because there is someone that I told this story to this week, and she told me that she told her brother, who automatically said, and he's a cop, there has to be more to that story. And you know what? I wish there was, because I just had to face the facts that it's because I was black, and that hurts so much. Like, we don't say this to, like, say, haha, it's because I was black, or they only did that because they were black. It's sad to admit that. It's hurtful to have to admit that. It's scary to have to admit that sometimes your crime can be just being black. And having a black son, like, that is so scary to me, and that is so hurtful to me, and, like, this has to stop, and this has to change. Like, that's not okay that can happen, and you can't do anything about it. I remember that I asked her to call the principal for me because I was so afraid to talk to her. And she knew me. She was white. Her father's a pastor, and I'd gone to his church when I was in middle school. So she knew me, and she knew my parents, and I was just hoping that even if I said, like, I got arrested but this wasn't true, that she would believe me. But you never know, because I feel like when it's issues of, you know, black versus white, and especially when it's a law enforcement officer, chances are the white person's getting sided with, and that's just how the country is. But she believed me too. And she said, you know, like, I don't care, like, that's a bunch of crap. Like, of course you can come, you know, so intern at the school. And she even went on to hire me at the school, and I worked there for 3 awesome years. It was great. But UCF had a problem with it. So even though I returned to my internship that Monday morning, the vice principal came in. I was in Audra's classroom. I wasn't close with her at the time, but I am now. And he asked me to leave and told me that I wasn't allowed to be on campus because UCF was pulling me out, and that I needed to go explain myself. And they were going to judge whether or not I would get kicked out of the elementary education program. So I went over to UCF and had to talk to the head of the education board there. And I remember being so grateful that he wasn't white, because I didn't think he would believe me if he was. He was a Hispanic man, and he told me, he's like, I have daughters that are your age, and I want you to talk to me like you're one of my daughters and just tell the truth. And I did. And, like, thankfully he believed me as well. I was able to stay in the program and graduate and get my teaching license. But all of that was in jeopardy over this one man's lies, and that's not okay. That week I gathered witness statements from, you know, my friends and my husband's friends, like Ashley and Mike and Nick and Paul, and I got them to my lawyer. And when I went to the lawyer and told him my story, the first thing he said was, and he was white, and he said, let me guess, it was a white off-duty downtown Orlando, you know, police deputy. And I said, yep. And he said, you don't believe how many, you know, cases like this I get every weekend. So with the witness statements and my statement, and the cops lie, he was able to get the court date dropped. The judge just threw it all out, and it didn't even go to trial. And I got my record, I got it expunged so that I could, you know, apply for teaching jobs without having to say that I'm a felon, on there. And, I kind of just buried it. Like, unless you were there or unless you were one of my close friends, I didn't talk to anyone about it because it was embarrassing. And I shouldn't have been embarrassed, and I wish I wasn't then. And I wish I had done something about it then. But I just thought, who's going to believe me? Like, it's me, this little black girl, against this white cop. And just from the stories that I've been reading all week that have really I've been so depressed all week, like reading comments from people and seeing the stuff that they say about, people just like me is just so disheartening and so disappointing. And the way they can stick up for these cops when they don't know the whole story and they don't know how it is sometimes is just so hurtful. And it makes me so scared for my son, because that could be him one day and someone saying, well, if only he complied, or if only he did this, or my friend Sarah posted something, and one of her friends said, oh, well, that just goes back to parents raising their kids right. If they didn't raise their kids to be about thug life, I'm not about thug life, and I got arrested. And sometimes it's just a racist cop, and I don't need to hear that some cops are good. I know that. So if that's all you have to contribute to this conversation, I don't want to hear it. I just want to be heard. I want to open some eyes. I want parents and teachers to maybe change the way you educate your children so that if they are an officer or someone in power when they're older and they come across my son, they can have some compassion for him. Unlike the officer that had no compassion for me and only saw me as black and nothing more. So thank you for listening, and I hope that you believe me, and I hope that it makes a difference in the way that you look at the world and the way that you choose to stand up for injustice that you see.